Africa's May 29th elections.
There was a start of change in the country.
We are on the verge of history.
I am standing here at the forefront of change where voices echo the call for action. The nation grapples with an unemployment crisis. As South Africans prepare to cast their votes, the question looms, will the winds of change usher in a new era, or will the legacy of the past maintain its grip on the future? Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa, a country that is on the cusp of a new political era today. South Africans are currently voting in the 7th Democratic General Election, and it is being touted as one of the toughest electoral battles since the end of apartheid in 1994. In this special election coverage, we get you the mood from South Africa and how its future could look with a new National Assembly and a new president. Can President Ramaphosa and the ANC retain the trust of the people, or will the winds of change sweep South Africa? A clear mandate or a coalition? South Africa is deciding now, and we're here to get you all of the developments from the ground. It's a decisive day for the people of South Africa and for its political leaders. People across the country are voting in provincial and national elections today, which are being touted as historic for more than one reason. President Cyril Ramaphosa is eyeing a second term, but the African National Congress, which has remained a dominant political force since the anti-apartheid struggle, has witnessed a fall in support. What are the reasons for this anti-incumbency wave in South Africa? Which way will the country's political landscape shift? South Africans have to decide today. Here's our report.
I should have brought hand warmers or gloves at least.
It's my first time voting, yes, and I'm feeling very excited but nervous.
Historic day. It's everyone's constitutional right to vote.
I understand that it's a very important decision to make.
I hope to see something different in the future.
I'm just really interested on where this country is going to go now from this election, because it's really a critical point right now.
May 29th. It is D-Day for South Africa. The country is holding its 7th democratic general election since the end of apartheid in 1994. Over 27 million eligible voters, 9 provinces and 257 municipalities, more than 23,000 polling stations, a new National Assembly and a new president for the next 5 years. South Africa votes. First things first. How does South Africa's election work? The country has a proportional voting system. Parties and candidates compete for 400 seats in the National Assembly. For the first time, independent candidates are also competing. So this year, voters received 3 ballots, instead of 2, each required a choice of one party or candidate. 2 ballots for electing National Assembly, and 3rd for provincial legislature in each of South Africa's 9 provinces.
The first is the national ballot, or the blue ballot. Now this remains the same across the country. Using this, the voters elect one of 52 political parties. This is for the 200 seats in the National Assembly. Next is the orange ballot for the Regional National Assembly. Now this is unique to each province. With this, voters elect either a political party or an independent candidate. And this is for the remaining 200 seats in the National Assembly. The third is the pink ballot for provincial legislature. Now, this also is unique to each province. Voters elect political parties and independent candidates with this, and the number of seats is determined by the population size in each province.
South Africans do not vote directly for the president. Instead, they elect 400 members of National Assembly, who then select the president by a simple majority. This is how South Africa's current National Assembly looks like. The African National Congress has 230 seats, Democratic Alliance, 84 seats, Economic Freedom Fighters or the EFF, 44 seats, and Inkatha Freedom Party or the IFP, 14 seats. Other parties take up the remaining 28 seats. The ANC has been dominant for 30 years, but this year the party faces its toughest election yet. Opinion polls say it may not get a majority and may drop below 50% for the first time. And if these polls are correct, then today's ballot could herald a new phase in South African politics, that of a coalition government. The drop in the ANC's popularity can be attributed to several factors. The country has been grappling with high cost of living. Rising crime rate has plagued South Africa for years. Unemployment has hit young people particularly hard, and there has been no respite from regular power cuts.
South Africa, we are facing with high rates of unemployment. Things are very tough in this country.
The infrastructure is crumbling. Water's, of course, going downhill, but it's going down the wrong drain.
I'm now for 4 years unemployed, and one son is at school, and my daughter, she's as well unemployed. So it's hard for us to come by just for that little money. I would like to have a job, any job.
If we can look at the South Africa at the state right now, look at the rape. It's going up. Look at the electricity. Look at the crime. Like the crime is like it's getting up. It's getting higher. And even us as black women, like we are not safe. And let's check at the unemployment. It's just a lot.
Among all these concerns, corruption remained on top of the list. Many voters say the ANC has not done justice to the country. They call President Ramaphosa's term disastrous.
My God, it's been a disaster. We trusted them. We trusted them and we gave them like many chances.
I can imagine our freedom fighters fighting so much for freedom, and this is how it ends up. I feel like it's disappointing.
We thought the economy is going to get better, our jobs, unemployment, and everything that's related to economy would get better. But he's failed so badly in that.
After his fallout with the ANC, former President Jacob Zuma put his weight behind the MK party and had been campaigning relentlessly to dent support for his former party. While he may be able to do so, many voters do not see a comeback this year for corruption-charged Zuma.
I personally feel President Jacob Zuma had his chance, and I feel like we should give someone else a chance to show and prove themselves.
They'll get 10 to 15%. It's not going to give them enough to have power over this country. But what it'll do then, it'll give them, they become like a kingmaker, where they can choose whether to go back or to do a coalition with the ANC, to stick on their own, or to join the multi-party charter.
Will President Cyril Ramaphosa and the African National Congress witness a historic wave of anti-incumbency? If there is a swing, could it bring greater political power and influence for Zuma? Or will it open doors for other opposition parties like the Democratic Alliance? South Africa has made its decision, and the results shall be announced on June 2nd.
I am currently at a polling station in Durban, South Africa, and we are bringing you all the live events from the ground. I have cast my vote. I have also been interacting with South African voters who have come out in huge numbers today to exercise their franchise in the democratic process. Let's take a look.
We're full of hope for today. Lots and lots of prayers have gone into this. A lot of work has gone into this. So we just hope that ultimately the right results will come through and we'll be able to fix this country.
It's good to see the people out voting. I think the polls will be one of the biggest polls I think we've had in a long time, probably since '94. So I'm excited to see what changes will come about.
What I'd hope to see is just that there's a lot of integrity that's introduced into the government and a lot more transparency and accountability. that they completely rethink some of their fundamental economic policies.
Let's put an end to corruption and hopefully to fix the infrastructure of South Africa and put a final end to load shedding.
We do know that the elections are neck and neck and nobody's going to have an outright majority.
We made a major decision because our country has been falling down and it needs to be resurrected again.
I've got a heart for the older people. I would really like to see the older people taken care of in this country in terms of that grant that they get. I mean, it's such a measly little amount of money.
Less corruption, more schools, better healthcare systems publicly for the people. The list is endless, honestly.
I mean, the vibe has been absolutely amazing at all 5 of our voting stations here in Ward 35. There's a lot of positivity. And obviously, yes, I am the DA, so I'm quite excited to see a lot of our folk coming out in the colour blues. So yeah, there's a lot of support, which is amazing.
For 3 decades now, the African National Congress has been the dominant political party in South Africa. The ANC started as a liberation movement, a movement to free black people from the oppression of a white minority rule. It was a symbol of equality, democracy, and a better life. And under the leadership of Nelson Mandela, the ANC was revered as a force of good. It is Mandela's legacy that has shaped South Africa's democracy into what it is today. But critics say the once revered ANC has lost its way. Have Mandela's political heirs failed to protect this legacy? Our next report explains.
Three decades ago, as South Africa triumphed over apartheid, the African National Congress rose as a beacon of hope for its people. Back then, the ANC was beyond politics. It was a movement dedicated to freeing black people from the clutches of white minority rule. And in 1994, as the country woke up to the dawn of freedom, the ANC transformed from a liberation movement to the party forming the government, with Nelson Mandela at its helm.
The time has come to say, we are one country.
Under Mandela's leadership, the party shaped up on one pledge: building a better life for all. It was dedicated to the principles of democracy, equality, and a brighter future for all South Africans. The ANC swept the elections with almost 63% of the votes under Mandela, who spent 27 years fighting against the apartheid system of racial segregation. But now, 30 years later, the ANC is on the verge of losing majority for the first time since coming to power. The party is marred by corruption, infighting, and a slew of undelivered promises.
The first time I voted, I thought the first time was for the ANC because I thought they're going to make a difference. Mandela's dream is not their dream. He had a dream and they came to mess up the dream. If he was still alive, maybe things could have been better.
The list of problems that the ANC has failed to solve is quite long. There are frequent power cuts across South Africa. The water and sewage systems are broken in several cities. There's garbage piling up on streets. And shortage of proper housing. The poor state of living conditions has left people losing faith in the ANC.
We would say for the past 2 years, we've been lacking service delivery. Not just water, to be quite honest, yet that is the most important. Infrastructure in terms of sewers, our sewers are boiling over. The storm water, electricity, all of these things combined is making our lives miserable.
The thing that we must do there right now is to give other parties a chance. So voting it's important because your vote is a perfect selection because we need to do a change.
A stable economy, proper jobs, and a decent standard of living are still a distant dream for many. In fact, South Africa today has the highest unemployment rate globally. It is also ranked as one of the most unequal countries in the world. An unequal distribution of wealth disproportionately affects black people in the country. Mandela's ANC spent years reversing the racist laws. And yet today, it has failed the very principles that it was founded on. Many say Mandela's dream is not the ANC's dream anymore. While around half of South Africa's population reels under poverty, the African National Congress leaders have been accused of illegally enriching themselves. Mandela's political heirs have allegedly siphoned off billions of dollars through government contracts. ANC leaders have been accused of receiving bribes to buy expensive suits, throw lavish parties or renovate their homes. Levels of corruption worsened under former President Jacob Zuma, who is currently being tried for graft charges. While President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed to clean up the party, he too has a scandal of his own to deal with. Cracks within the African National Congress began emerging after Mandela stepped down in 1999. Since then, the rift in the party has only been widening. Mandela's successor Thabo Mbeki was forced out by Jacob Zuma. Then Zuma himself was suspended by the party over alleged insubordination. So the infighting is spiraling. The African National Congress has been in dire straits. Many say, with its foundation completely shaken over the years, the party's future looks bleak. Can the ANC pull itself together to protect Nelson Mandela's legacy?
South Africa's political landscape is bracing for a seismic shift, and one leader who analysts say could influence this change is former South African President Jacob Zuma. Now, he has survived multiple political and legal challenges to return to the limelight time and again. This year, despite a court setback that blocks him from contesting this election, the 82-year-old has been campaigning hard against the African National Congress, a party that he had been associated with for over 6 decades. Will Jacob Zuma be the wild card this election? Will he emerge as a kingmaker? Our next report answers these critical questions.
He's a former anti-apartheid activist. He was jailed for a decade with Nelson Mandela for attempting to overthrow the apartheid government. And for years, he had been a pillar of strength for the African National Congress, the party that has governed South Africa since 1994. Come 2024, Jacob Zuma is campaigning against the African National Congress, a party that he headed for a decade from 2007 to 2017, and a party that made him a two-time president between 2009 and 2018.
I, Jacob Zuma, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa and will obey, observe, uphold, and maintain the Constitution and all other law.
We have to do things differently now that we are...
Amid multiple charges of corruption and state capture, Zuma had an ugly political fallout with the ANC. In December 2023, he threw his weight behind the newly formed MK party, accusing his former party, the ANC, and President Cyril Ramaphosa of betrayal. Multiple polls have predicted the ANC is set to lose its parliamentary majority for the first time since the fall of apartheid in 1994, which would force it to form a coalition government. Opinion polls also suggest Zuma's party is making a huge impact. They say it is gaining around 13% of the national vote and 25% in Zuma's political heartland of KwaZulu-Natal, making the 82-year-old a political wildcard. Some analysts say the former president could also be in a position to be kingmaker.
There are many parties that are there that will be voting with us, because as the black nation that has been struggling, we are saying that it's D-Day. This day that is coming, we say it is D-Day. We are going to take the win by 2/3 majority and change it to become a country that is better than what it is now. Those who say with their mouths that we are free, but are basically gatekeeping for the oppressors, we are going to remove them from the position they are holding.
If the ANC does not get a majority as predicted, it may have to form a coalition with the Radical Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, and the MK party, which could lead Zuma to once again take on an influential role in the government. Earlier this month, South Africa's highest court barred Zuma from becoming a member of the parliament. His 15-month jail sentence for a contempt of court in 2021 became a roadblock for him in 2024. But he has still been using his mass popularity to win more voters for the MK party and dense support for the African National Congress. MK's growth has also eaten into support for other opposition parties like the Democratic Alliance and the Economic Freedom Fighters. If Zuma cannot contest to be a member of the parliament, he cannot be president. So what is Jacob Zuma seeking if not another term as the head of the state? Several analysts say, with the leverage in the coalition, Zuma wants to dethrone Ramaphosa for a more pliable leader. He may also be seeking to protect his legacy and ensure his continued political influence. But Jacob Zuma has been a divisive figure. For some, he's a liberator and a savior for the poor. For others, he's a corrupt leader who has been at the forefront of some of the worst scandals that South Africa has seen. Despite this, Zuma has returned to the political spotlight time and again. And now, as the political landscape in South Africa undergoes significant shifts, what Zuma is aiming for is a fierce comeback.
I'm coming to you from a polling station in Durban, South Africa. I've been here throughout the day and the turnout has been incredible, with streams of voters flowing in throughout the day, queuing up around the block, excited to exercise their franchise and make their voice heard for the future of our country. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Professor William Gumede, who is the founder of Democracy WF, joining us live from Johannesburg. Thank you for being with us, Professor.
No, I'm very happy to be with you.
Right, let's jump right in. The voter turnout has already exceeded the previous election. There are queues of people here. What was the mood on the ground like where you cast your ballot, and what was the voter turnout there?
I mean, I think it's very, very exciting. It's very optimistic. I mean, I remember 1994, which ended apartheid, that election. You know, it's getting close to that. I think there's an air of expectation that there's going to be change. Actually, you know, in the queues where I was this morning, I'm in a suburb here in Johannesburg, in Greenside, so leafy suburb. It was all good natured, very, you know, people very excited. People came with small children, the prams. It really was an optimistic mood and a hopeful mood.
Absolutely, and Professor, what issues do you think are the most important for the voters in this election?
Yes, I mean, first, just, you know, the turnout is going to be key, and I didn't respond to that. I mean, a high turnout really will take the ANC to that 40% floor and will make it very difficult for it to put a government together. A lower turnout will favor the ANC, which means that, you know, they could get to sort of 49, 48, 47, and then they will be able to put together a government with some of the smaller parties. I think the big thing for South Africans now, that people are really worried about, is, you know, starting with crime. I mean, 80 murders a day, and according to the World Bank, 10% of South Africa's GDP is being eaten away by crime, and I think that's very conservative. I would think actually it's most probably a double that figure. Then unemployment. I mean, we're sitting at 42% unemployment. I mean, that's the world's highest unemployment in Africa. The only other country with a higher unemployment is Sudan, and Sudan is a war-torn country. And if you look at young people who are unemployed, we've got 60% unemployed among young people. And then there's also the high living costs. It really, I mean, the costs of living, and people are struggling. Families are really struggling to make ends meet. And then the total failure of some parts of the state to deliver services.
Yeah, right. And Professor, how do you see the possibility of coalition shaping the landscape of our future? especially considering this might very well be the first election where the ANC does not garner the 50 plus 1% support.
Yeah, no, I think it's very likely we are going to get a coalition for the first time in our post-1994 history at a national level, and possibly some of the provinces. I mean, KwaZulu-Natal province, for example, Gauteng, we may see a coalition. And these days, it may even look like Mpumalanga, that used to be a stronghold of the ANC. There may be a coalition there also. First thing, just about coalitions actually, the model of coalition is actually the best model for diverse countries like South Africa. And in Africa, incidentally, since the end of colonialism, it has been the most successful model of government, not like dominant party governments or even dictatorships and so on. We are entering the era now of coalitions. I think because the ANC has failed so badly the last 30 years, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to get dominant parties like the ANC again after this election. I think people will be very reluctant to give one party overall support going forward. And I think we now are going to have to prepare ourselves either for an ANC coalition with parties or for a multi-party charter coalition with smaller parties.
Yeah. Absolutely, Professor. Thank you very much for joining us on First Post Africa for the special edition and all the election coverage. Your valued insights appreciated.
Thank you.
The polling booths are open for a few more hours. Usually, the Election Commission in South Africa begins releasing partial results within hours of the polls closing. So early trends could begin trickling in soon. Results will be declared by this Sunday. Stay tuned to our special coverage as we continue to track South Africa's historic election and what lies ahead for the country's political future. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. South Africa is pushing to develop a vaccine for tuberculosis, the world's second deadliest disease after COVID-19 that affects millions of lives every year. The clinical trials for a newly developed M72 vaccine could prove to be a game changer. If researchers succeed, this would be the first vaccine against tuberculosis to be rolled out in almost a century. Our next report will tell you more.
Hundreds of thousands of people die because of tuberculosis each year. Millions suffer because of it. It's the second deadliest infection after COVID-19. The disease is caused by a type of bacteria that most often affects the lungs. It spreads through the air when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or spits. Despite being curable, tuberculosis claimed more than 1 million lives in 2022 alone. Health experts say that's because many don't get the treatment in time, while others don't have access to proper medication. And yet, in a century's time, the world hasn't got a new vaccine to fight tuberculosis. But this can change soon. Trials for a new vaccine are underway in South Africa. It's a collaborative effort by the Gates Medical Research Institute and the Wellcome Trust. They are holding clinical trials of new M72 vaccines. The jab works for people with latent TB. This is when the affected person doesn't show symptoms. It aims to protect older adolescents and adults from pulmonary tuberculosis that affects the lungs. The vaccine that is currently available does not prevent primary infection. It doesn't even prevent reactivation of latent pulmonary infection. The study for the new vaccine involves up to 20,000 patients across 60 sites globally, out of which 32 sites are in South Africa. The first set of the vaccine jabs were administered in Johannesburg in March. This was the third phase of the clinical trials aimed at evaluating the efficacy of the vaccine. Experts found that the vaccine was able to protect 1 out of 2 people from the disease. According to the World Health Organization, a 50% efficacy rate could save 8.5 million lives and prevent 76 million new cases. The results of these trials will be out in 5 years. and rollout is possible as early as 2030. The M72 vaccine could become the first new TB vaccine in almost a century. It could be a game changer in the global health sector, offering a beacon of hope in the battle against tuberculosis.
And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye. South Africa's May 29th elections.
There was a start of change in the country.
We are on the verge of history.
I am standing here at the forefront of change where voices echo the call for action. The nation grapples with an unemployment crisis. As South Africans prepare to cast their votes, the question looms, will the winds of change usher in a new era, or will the legacy of the past maintain its grip on the future?
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here.